And of course, we should point out Todd Eccles is not running for governor, although he might have some support in some quarters, I think, if he did. But he's here to talk to us today about firearms and firearm safety, as he does on Friday mornings. Bill Colley with you, of course, as Mr. Big Voice said there in the introduction. We're at 33, and it's coming up on 7 minutes after 9 o'clock. In fact, you got introduced to Tommy Alquist in the lobby as the gun guy.
Yeah, I did, and maybe I'll become his right-hand man. That would be sweet.
That is, you're not shooting necessarily with your right hand, but I was reading the other day somebody posted something on my Facebook page and said that you should have both eyes open while you're training.
That's the new way to train. It takes a little while, it takes a little practice. If you're just getting into shooting, obviously, and you're right-handed, close your left eye, do that kind of thing. Once you get the basics learned and you know you're going to be safe with the firearm, then practice with both eyes open. It enables you to see, your peripheral vision a lot better, and actually, you're a lot quicker to transition from one target to the next. Now, this isn't necessarily for bullseye shooting. This is for, you'll be able to hit center mass, you'll be able to ring a target, that kind of thing. But it takes a little while. It takes a lot of muscle memory in your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and you just kind of dial it in. The first few times you do it, you're going to get a headache. But once you get it figured out, you're good to go.
You pointed out, I think, in one of the recent visits, it might have been last week, not a bad idea if you're training to try. First of all, your basic position, you're going to have both hands on
Hmm.
a pistol, but at some point, switch hands, move hands around, even maybe you still use both hands, but move your dominant hand and try from both sides because you never know when or where you're going to be and what you're facing and what direction you're facing.
Yeah, try two-handed, right-handed, two-handed, left-handed, then just right-handed, then just left-handed because you don't know what you're going to be up against. You don't know if maybe you're going to get shot in the arm. Maybe your arm is injured. Maybe I go out and I decide to play a little basketball and I break my right arm, and I'm going to be in a cast for 6 weeks, and I still want to be able to carry. Well, now all of a sudden, I hope I can shoot with my. I hope I'm good at shooting with my left hand. That also makes for the case that maybe I have to go out and buy another holster, that kind of thing. I still want to carry my gun around. So I practice, practice, practice. I mean, when you're playing basketball, they say learn how the best players know how to do it with their left hand, know how to shoot with their right hand. Be multiversed in either way.
I remember seeing some pictures. The FBI would do these where they would take promotional pictures of certain agents and various poses as if they were, ready to fire. And I remember seeing Mark Felt, who was a Twin Falls native, in some of those pictures he must have been back in the 1950s because he had the fedora on and the jacket and tie. And some he has, both hands, and others he's just one hand and he's in a crouch. And obviously, it was done because it looks cool. I don't know that necessarily all of those positions were the best ways to take aim and fire.
There's multiple multiple positions. I mean, you can go prone. You can shoot kneeling, standing up. Really, if you think about it, we have to learn one way, and you have to learn the basics. You have to learn the grip, the trigger squeeze, the sight picture, how to really use your sights and aim and fire and that kind of thing, and the different stances. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, when someone kicks open your bedroom door, I highly doubt you're going to step out into your hallway with your firearm and go, okay, hang on a minute. What's the stance Todd taught me? Okay, I get my grip right. Hang on a minute. I got to take aim. So you've got to be able to crawl before you can walk and walk before you can run. So you need to learn the basics. You need to learn the muscle memories. But in defensive style shooting, stuff's going to be very dynamic, and you may not do everything correct, but you're going to understand it. You're going to know it. So you may get that trigger pull correct. Are you going to have time to line up the sights? No. Hence, using both, shooting with both eyes open. Are you even going to have time to look at the sights? Maybe, maybe not. If it's in 5 to 7 feet, which is in defensive distance, you're going to use more of a point shooting type method where it's just kind of draw, aim, and fire. Your body, if you're doing everything right, your body will naturally line up with the target. That's one of the reasons why they say shoot center mass, because you got this big
Mm-hmm.
area, and center mass is anywhere center mass is a good shot. If you're shooting center mass and you shoot a little high, you're gonna get a neck shot, a head shot. You shoot a little low, you're still gonna get them in the abdomen. If you get a little right, little left, you might clip a lung. You're still gonna take an arm or shoulder. But if you're just shooting for the head is moving all the time back and forth. And if you miss on the head and you miss a little high, you're going to miss everything. Shoot center mass, you'll be able to shoot quicker. You can utilize point shooting, maybe both eyes open, and you're still going to hit something, and a hit is a hit.
Speaking of the FBI, this is a fictional account, but I was watching an episode of The Americans last week, and one of the agents takes one of the secretaries down to the firing range, and she's not hitting anything even remotely close on the target. And he stops and says, "I didn't know you wore glasses," because she's wearing just a quick pair of glasses or light pair of glasses. And she said, "Well, I think it helps me better see the target." And he said, "Take the glasses off." And then he explained to her, he says, "You're looking at your sights, not at the target."
Right.
And he said, "So follow the sights instead and see how you do it." And when she did that, she got much better. She got much closer to the center.
I have a slide in my concealed carry class presentation in my PowerPoint, and it shows three views of you're looking down the barrel of a gun, and it's aimed at the target. There's three different views, and you gotta tell me which one is the correct sight picture. The correct sight picture is the one where you're looking down the barrel of your gun. The rear sights are slightly blurry. The target is slightly blurry, but you're focused on that front sight, and the front sight is clear, clear, clear. Because if you can't see that, depending on your sights, if you can't see that front sight post right in the middle of those rear sights, if that front sight post is nowhere to be seen, you're not going to hit the target. You're not going to hit where you're aiming at. So it's all about front sight press. It's all about pay attention to that front sight. If it's not there, you're not going to hit your target. So you don't want the bullseye, excuse me, the target to be crystal clear. You want that front sight so you know where you're shooting.
Reminds me of speaking of television, when I was a kid, an episode of the Flintstones where Fred takes Wilma bowling and she gets a strike, but she gets it in the wrong alley. Uh, in other words, it comes down to your aim, and you're doing the same thing on a bowling lane because you've got all of those little you've got your sights that you're
Yeah,
using.
yeah, exactly. And I've had some people that shot their neighbor's target once or twice in class. We fixed it. I have everyone. I ask everyone at the and I ask them over and over and over again because I have all different levels of shooters in the class. I say, does everyone know how to use sights? And typically, no one will raise their hand. And I say, okay, that's fine. If you do and you want to tell me later, tell me later. But when you're shooting, I'll be able to know really, really quick what if you're actually using your sights correctly. And there's usually one person who thinks they know how to use their sights and they're kind of close, but they don't know how to exactly use them. And we get them all dialed in. But yeah, if you're using your sights properly, you're going to hit the target.
We have a caller with us. And caller, before I get to you, I just want to mention we're at 14 minutes after 9 o'clock, 35. And Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense is joining us in studio. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Caller, you're up next.
Good morning, Todd. This is Kyle.
Morning.
And wanted to call and let you know how much I enjoyed your class. I was so impressed with how many women were in the class. I was really impressed by the end of the class on how many women were enjoying it to the point that they were jumping towards their gun before time.
Yeah, that happens.
And by the end, they were grouping and being very, very excited, including my daughter. She did very well after some instructions from your line guy, and she enjoyed herself tremendously. So I just wanted to congratulate you on how well I thought the class went.
I appreciate it, and I'm glad you came, and I'm glad you brought all your family. It was a good class, and the women I've seen more and more females, more and more women show up to take these classes, and I think that's fantastic. And maybe some that haven't shot much, or if they've even shot at all. And once you show them that it's nothing to be scared of, and you show them how to do it properly, you show them how to do the proper stance, how to lean in, when they're doing the stance, lean into the gun, how to control the gun, and then that gun's not throwing them around, not controlling them. Then they have an enjoyable time. Now, if you're sloppy and your form is real loose and you're leaning real far back like you're scared of the gun, you don't want to shoot it, it'll kick them around. And it doesn't happen to all women, but I think there's a good portion of women who have gone shooting at some point in their life with their husbands or boyfriends or dads sometime growing up in the past, and someone handed them a gun that they weren't ready to shoot, and a bigger caliber, and they didn't focus on the form, they didn't focus on how to shoot that firearm. They shot it, they jumped, it hurt them, it kicked, it scared them, whether it be a shotgun, a rifle, a handgun, and that follows them, that makes them nervous of everything, that develops a flinch. So if you can settle them down and you can show, and this is not just women, actually, this is everybody, but I see it more and more with women, you know get them something that they are able to shoot and show them the correct form and how to lean into it, they will enjoy shooting just as much as anyone else. And to be honest with you, nothing against the men out there, but women will actually can actually I think shoot better than a lot of men because they pay attention, they listen. There's not that little hint of machismo there, like you can't teach me anything. But I love having women in the class. It's great. It's great fun to teach them.
We wanted to point out too. A caller brought along the whole family. There was a young boy in Florida a couple of years ago, 12 years old, and he stopped a burglar dead in his tracks. And he later explained, he said, "Well, my dad trained me. Sometimes mom and dad can't be at home, and in fact, a lot of times you've got kids who come home after school and mom and dad aren't there. A lot of times burglars know the situation in the neighborhood. They've been casing the place for a long time. This may be a good reason why children should take a course like this."
Yeah, and at the depending on the age of the kid, just know how to use the firearm. If it's a 9 millimeter, maybe it's a 22, maybe it's a little 22 cricket rifle. I mean, something. They need to know how they work. They need to, depending on the maturity of the child. I mean, I'm not going to say you got to start them at age 6 and that's when it is. It just depends on the maturity of the child, and every parent will be have to be the judge of that. But you know, eh, they if they know how they function and they understand and they can grasp the seriousness of it and how we have to be responsible with it and all the basic safety rules, sure, take them shooting. I mean, education starts young. I mean, I've got a 3-year-old at home. He's my youngest, and I'm not going to hand him a little cricket 22 rifle and say go shoot it. But I guarantee you, he's old enough this year that I will sit on the ground and he will sit on my lap, and I will load that single shot rifle up for him, and I will hold it to his shoulder, and I'll hold it for him, and I'll teach him how to use the sights, and I will teach him how to pull the trigger. And we'll probably do that as much as I want to sit there and feed that gun. He will probably shoot it, and he will love it. That's how I started my other kids. That's how I started my other son. You just start that, and then you start talking to him, and you explain stuff to him, and it just goes from there. You got to develop the respect and the love, and the love of shooting and the responsibility at a young age.
I was going to say, uh, I think I don't have a recollection even when my dad took us out and started us, but I know we were very, very young. And by the time I was 11, I was, I was, they were putting some pretty powerful, when I shot my first 357 when I was 11.
Oh yeah,
And I had to have him stand behind me, and he put his hands out on the backs of my shoulders
sure.
because he was worried I might tip over. But by that time, I learned originally just on a 22.
Hmm.
And then as time went on, we ended up shooting shotguns, rifles, and pistols. And even he purchased his own service revolver, so I got to shoot that 38 snub nose a few times as well. But I had the feel of everything
Hmm.
by the time I was probably 6, 7, 8 years old.
Oh yeah, and that's the way you want to start. Just quick word of warning, because I hear the music. Quick word of warning: if you're going to take your child out to shoot, make sure it's not a gun that's going to scar them, not going to jump out of their hands, not going to make them scared. Start small. You don't want to develop that flinch. You want them to enjoy this, not to hate it and never want to go back.
Maybe a pocket gun.
Yeah.
We've got a short break. Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense. He'll also talk a little bit about how you can get in touch with him. He's got a class coming up in May, 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Yeah, this is really powerful gun music.
Man, it gets me fired up.
I think we need the Bonanza theme here.
There you go.
Something like that. Maybe Gunsmoke.
James Bond.
Yeah, James Bond works well. Uh, Bond, by the way, depending on who plays Bond, you have a different pistol in his hand. I was reading about that the other day, and that the various actors have had different preferences. And so they've switched around. Roger Moore had a different preference than Pierce Brosnan, and Daniel Craig has a different preference than how can I forget Sean Connery's name? There it is.
I guess if it feels comfortable to them, it's gonna look like it belongs more than
Right.
the other one. So I see why they do that. I guess.
But in the early movies, I don't think they were always authentic, because you'd see Bond just swat someone across the head with his pistol, and he'd knock them out, and that's how he might, instead of shooting them if he wasn't being vicious that particular day.
I've seen in movies they're not very authentic anyway. I've seen someone with a revolver, and then you heard the sound of a slide and a round chambering. So it is what it is.
It's 9:23. Todd Eccles is with us from Patriot Defense this morning. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 36, And just a quick note, if you'd like to reach Todd this morning, 736-0300. That's 736-0300. And for people who'd like to schedule and be in that next class coming up in May, what should they do?
They can get a hold of me. They can call me. They can text me at area code 620-794-6223. That's area code 620-794-6223. The next class is on the 20th. It's the only one I can fit in for next month because of graduation and all those other things going on. My kid's going to be up one weekend shooting at a state, but hopefully we're going to have the complete class and the shooting portion at my house if I don't dig up any more surprises. I don't know if you caught that on Facebook, Bill, or any listeners. I was in the middle of my class last week, and the guy digging, he shot me a text message, says, "Hey, when you get a minute, come on out. We need to talk." And I'm thinking, I called Dig Line. I didn't hear an explosion. I hope I didn't electrocute him. Went out there, and something Dig Line doesn't mark, irrigation pipe. And yeah, we dug up a huge section of that. Took the top right off of it. Luckily, it didn't have any water in it at the time, so we got that all repaired that Monday. And he's coming back out tomorrow. Hopefully, we can get this thing finished up and we can be shooting in it on the 20th. But it was a good class. I had a nice big turnout. Lots of ladies in the class. It was a fun class, and I appreciate everyone that signed up to take it.
And I was going to say, we talked a little bit about people who are younger taking the course.
Hmm.
And you had a caller, was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, who is probably a senior citizen. You've had many of those too.
Oh yeah, yeah, and anyone can take the class. I've had some older folks, some senior citizens, take the class. I've had if you're handicapped, let me know, and we can do whatever we need to do to try to accommodate you. You have every right to self defense too. I've had people shooting while sitting on their walker. I've had all kinds of stuff go on. I mean, come in, take the class, learn the laws. So I'll help you out, teach you how to shoot whatever firearm you have, and teach you how to shoot it however way it has to be. If it's from a wheelchair, if it's from whatever, we'll get it figured out for you.
You know, we touched on base on a few things, and you mentioned that you have an appendix carry,
Hmm.
and for you it's more comfortable. I was looking last week at holsters, and I was just looking at the variety that are available out there,
There's a
and
lot.
obviously a holster only works for people who may wear a sport coat or a jacket.
Hmm.
But it doesn't do you much good if you're walking around just in a t-shirt all day because there's no concealed carry.
Well, yeah,
But it seems to me that the other challenge in all of this is if you're going to carry, um, first of all, you have to have it. You have to have an ability to take that pistol out of a holster without blowing your darn foot off. And so
right.
that means you need something that's not only comfortable, but that is going to be reasonable if you're driving.
Uh
And I
huh.
know a lot of people like to just put the pistol down on the
Sure.
console when they're driving, or on the passenger side seat. But if you're driving and you got a seatbelt on and everything else, and there's going to be some complications here. But I would imagine that there's still a lot of options for people out there.
There's all kinds of options. I mean, I appendix carry. I can still access that while I'm driving. It's better than carrying where I used to carry. Where I still sometimes carry at 3 o'clock. Tucked in my pants and IWB holster where the seatbelt buckles over. But there's all kinds. There's smart carry. I mean, some people will have an extra gun in their car in a holster that they've mounted to the console or somewhere, so they don't have to remove the gun that's on them, but they still have access to one if they need it. That's a possibility too. But there's holsters. I mean, there's shoulder holsters, ankle holsters. There's all kinds of holsters. But pay the money. Know that you're going to pay the money. When I get a good holster, when I buy a gun, I get extra magazines. It's like a package deal. I buy the gun, and I know that I'm gonna allot so much money for extra magazines for ammo and about anywhere from 60 to $100 for a good holster, quality holster, one that's not going to collapse on itself, one that's going to hold the gun properly so you're able to get to it. There's so many options. I mean, there's just almost too numerous to list here. If you like to ride a bike, if you like to ride a motorcycle, maybe you like to hike. And some of these, if you're a real active person, it lends you to the fact that maybe two guns, three guns are better than one. As far as I use this gun when I'm in town, I use a smaller gun when I'm mountain biking or I'm hiking. I use this gun for this, and that tends to lead to different holsters.
Well, you gotta when you're training someone, start immediately with that holster because there's some safety that's involved simply with putting your pistol in
Yes.
there and simply with taking it out.
Yeah, yeah, you need to make sure your finger is away from that trigger and off that trigger when you are reholstering that firearm and when you are drawing that firearm. Because if it comes in contact with the trigger and when you're pushing, reholstering that firearm, you're going to have a hole right through your leg, down your leg, through the back of you, into your foot. You need to keep that finger off the trigger. And one of the best ways to learn how to do that is empty the gun, make sure it's unloaded, and do that. I mean, hundreds of times. Draw that gun,
Right.
reholster that gun,
Right.
unloaded.
Will they let you do this at a shop if you go in? Will they let you try and see which is the most comfortable?
It just depends on the shop. Most of these holsters are sealed up and different things. You'd have to ask them. They may let you put them on. Some holsters get a little personal to the fact that they are IWB, which is in the waistband. So they're actually you have to like loosen up your pants, loosen up your belt, and you got to tuck them in between your body and the pants. Some of them kind of get a little personal, and they may not let you. Does that make sense? They
It
don't
does.
they don't want to spread that around a little bit. Talk to someone. I've got holsters. I know other people that have holsters, and I've lent mine to other people to try more than once to see if it works out for them, and you can go that route as well.
We got more with Todd Eccles coming up. It's 34 on Top Story with Bill Colley on KLIX, and it's 9:30. Andy Griffith knew how to handle a firearm.
There you
Barney
go.
didn't, but
Well, yeah, one bullet, one bullet.
it's coming up on 9:34. Todd Eccles joining me, Bill Colley on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 36. And we do want to point out, if you're listening this morning, we thank you. But if you're struggling with listening to the program, it may well be what's going on between your ears, and you need to give a call to Dr. Christine Pickup at Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert. There are many choices available for hearing health, but one of the reasons you might call Dr. Pickup is her experience. 17 years, going on 18 now, serving the hearing impaired of all ages. True diagnostic testing is going to help you know what the causes of your hearing loss are and will lead to the best treatment options. Trust your hearing to a certified audiologist. Call Mount Harrison Audiology today for your appointment, 208 312 0957. We're giving out a lot of phone numbers, so we'll wait a couple of minutes before we ask Todd, because otherwise you'll be getting calls for hearing, and Dr. Pickup will be getting calls for training.
We'll
So
work together. He can sell them the hearing pro, and we'll.
another thing you should think about is having some protection for your ears while you're doing this.
Yeah, yeah. When you're shooting well, I require at the class eye protection and ear protection. And when you go out and just shoot at the range at the gravel pit, I still encourage it. Safety, safety, safety. I mean, you got like it's like a little mini explosion going off in your hands, and
It's several of them if you're doing a class.
yeah, exactly. And good set of eye protection, and you can just go for eyes. You can just go down to the Harbor Freight or somewhere and just buy some inexpensive safety rated safety glasses will work. For ear protection, a lot of people will just use those little foam plugs you get at a lot of the food plants. For some people, that's not enough. They will go and they will get some muffs, and some of them will go the extra step and get some electronic muffs, which are really nice. If you've never dealt with those before, what they do is they take some batteries, you turn them on, and the high decibel noise, like even a sliding forward and chambering around, or a gun going off, it'll mute that, but it enhances all the little noises.
I got an odd question here, and I don't know the answer to this, and maybe someone listening would, but on a daily basis, I wear trifocals because they help me when I'm reading, and I do have some reading involved with work.
Hmm.
But sometimes when I'm out in public, I wear contact lenses. The difference is the trifocals help me with all that close up. The contact lenses are great for farsighted, viewing, but you can't read a menu with them otherwise. So if someone is actually trying to, we mentioned earlier about how you want to see the sights
Hmm.
more than you want to see the targets. So probably somebody who's wearing trifocals with an issue like mine might be better off wearing the trifocals when they're training than, let's say, wearing contacts, which may not help them with the sights up close.
And I think and I don't wear glasses or anything, so this might be a little out of my realm, and it just depends too on where does that take. What distance does that stuff occur? Because you're holding the firearm out at arm's length. I mean, is that you still going to be able to see it? You still going to be able to see the target? granted, I said the bullseye still needs to be a little blurry, but you still need to be able to see it. So it just depends on how it probably is going to be a little different for each person. Maybe one way would work for you where it wouldn't work for another person. We just kind of have to find that happy medium.
I was going to say, happy medium is what you call a palm reader who's made a lot of money.
There.
Uh, but I was going to say, it really, someone could probably try at least at home,
Sure.
just trying the sites out, and when they get a good feel for it, then they'll know before they actually go to training, because you don't want to get to training and realize, gee, I should have brought the other pair.
Yeah, and I think I've had that happen before. They still hit the target. They maybe weren't shooting as good as what they wanted to. But yeah, and here's the thing too. You don't know what you're gonna, if you're carrying your gun for protection, you don't know when something bad's gonna happen. So, if you go to a class and you want to be safe, obviously use the best way, okay? But maybe you need to be able to train and use both ways, contacts and your glasses, because you don't know. It could be the middle of the night. What are you gonna have on? Are you gonna have your glasses there? You're just gonna grab and throw on? I mean, you still want to be able to see your target, but you don't know what you're gonna be wearing at the time. So you need to be somewhat proficient either way. If that makes any sense.
Got about a minute before the next break. For people out there who are listening this morning, if you'd like to sign up for one of Todd's courses, obviously you can't do it just by yelling out the back window, but they can contact you.
Yeah, you can yell at me by calling me or texting me. Area code 620-794-6223. It's area code 620-794-6223. You can also find me on Facebook. It's under Patriot Defense. Find me there. Shoot me a message. Comment on something. Like the page. Please like the page. And I can answer any questions. I can get you signed up. I know we're quite a ways out. The next class is on May 20th, but I've already gotten quite a few calls, and I've actually within the next week, hopefully, depending on what happens with my range, I'm going to get some classes scheduled in June. I'm able to schedule further out now since I'm only depending on me and no one else to get my schedule approved through. So I already got a big line of people waiting for my June classes.
And maybe we can mention too after the break, Todd has traveled before. He's gone up to Owyhee County and done courses in public venues. So if we get a chance, let's talk a little bit more about that too, because
Sure.
there are likely people tuning in and they're wondering, hey, maybe we could bring him and have.
Yeah.
There are certain community groups and the like who'd like to do this, and
Sure.
it's easier for them to have you come to them than per se, vice versa.
We can do something.
More with Todd Eccles from Patriot Defense on the way in just a couple of minutes. It's 37. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Todd Eccles is our studio guest. He's joining us from Patriot Defense, talking firearms. And, of course, if you've got a question or comment for Todd, too, while he's in studio with us. Boy, they beat me to the punch. 736-0300 is the number. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX, newsradio1310.com. And Todd, we'll just go back to the phones.
Works.
Caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Thank you. One of the things I had to learn how to do is I wear trifocals myself, and I look for contrasting. If you're going to use the sights, I look for a contrast because obviously the sights are quite close. So I went ahead and just use the method of looking for a variance in contrast. And it works pretty good. When I was shooting actively a number of years ago, I was more in tune with the eye-hand coordination method, where my eye focused on it, and I taught myself how to make my arm follow where my eye was. But I did have a humorous story for Todd. I think he may appreciate this. When I was in the military, I trained on a huge variety of weapons, and one of them was a fully automatic Thompson machine gun. And the gunny sergeant handed it to me. He says, well, here, try to hit the target, which I didn't, obviously. And after he got done belly laughing, he says, let me show you how to do it the right way, son. But, things spun all over the place, and I couldn't hardly get my finger off the trigger. But he showed me how to control that puppy. But that was pretty crazy.
I bet.
Sounds like a lot of fun, though.
Well, it was. I dumped half of a magazine before I could get my finger off the trigger.
It's all in technique, man.
I want to thank our caller. I know his service history. He served in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War, and you trained on a lot of different firearms,
Oh yeah.
and unfortunately, in that part of the world too, you've got to be very very careful because you've got a lot of humidity. And then I had a teacher of mine when I was young who told us stories about fighting in North Africa in World War II and said instead of humidity, it was dry and they had sand. And he said they had cosmoline that they had to. He said, you mix that with sand. He said it was a very unpleasant experience. You were basically always cleaning your rifle
Oh yeah.
because you had little other choice.
I wouldn't last over there because I hate clean guns. But this caller, actually, he made me think of something when he was talking about how he shoots and stuff. Um, I'm not always a huge proponent of it, but I could see how when you get older and maybe you had problems with your eyes or whatever, it'd be great. One of those lasers, one of those Crimson Trace lasers that you put on your
Mhm.
gun, because if you long as that's dialed in, you're gonna be good, and if you can see that laser out there now, you still need to know how to use your, what they call your iron sights. You need to know how to use that, so if your, laser battery's dead and your laser fails, it is what it is, but those can actually help you out quite a bit. The laser goes out, and essentially, if it's on center mass somewhere, that's where your round is gonna go. So, that may help someone out with has, some vision problems as well.
As you're getting older too, I think I've talked to some people who tell me, in fact, they train over in Jerome County,
Mhm.
and they tell me that they have decided it's a look, whatever helps you out. Now, in the beginning, you may not want to train with one,
Sure.
but as time goes on, then yeah, if it helps you with accuracy, especially in a crisis, not a bad idea.
Well, and the laser is actually a really good training method too, because it's going to show you whether or not you flinch or not. They'll get dialed in. They'll get that laser on what they want to shoot. They'll pull that trigger, and all of a sudden that laser moves really quick. It'll move to the right, to the left, wherever they're flinching, and you'll be able to tell what they're doing really, really
This
fast.
is because I'm sure a lot of people, just as they depress that trigger, have a tendency to close their eyes.
Some people do that, and what one of the things that I see happen too is they've shot something. They want to shoot that 40 caliber, okay? Because 40 is the number for everybody. And I got burned pretty bad in my class. They were calling me out about my 40 versus 9 debate on the radio. But anyhow, 40 caliber is the caliber for a lot of people. And a lot of people flinch like crazy because they shoot a 40 caliber because there's just a lot of kick, a lot of jumpiness, a lot of recoil, a lot of snappiness with the 40 cal. And they will what they'll push it, so they'll try to mitigate the recoil. They'll be pulling that trigger, and as they pull the trigger, right when their body knows that gun's going to go bang, they'll push down, and that's what they call flinch. And they can shoot, but they're not shooting where they're aiming necessarily. They're always shooting low. They're flinching, and that's why I tell everyone get away from if you're flinching. Just because you like that caliber, don't shoot it. Get away from it. Go shoot something else and see if you can get rid of that flinch and work your way back up to that 40. But a lot of people shoot calibers just because they're bigger, and it's not good for them because they can't shoot them. It's too much for them.
We were talking earlier about holsters and comfort,
Hmm.
and of course, obviously, if you're driving, it's versus walking. It all comes down to you might even want a couple. You might want one that's easier for driving. You might want one that when you're out on the street walking around, it's easier for you. But you said there's always some drawbacks. Some people like these that around their back, and you said if you've got a something around your back, there's a hazard in that.
Yeah, there's a couple hazards. First of all, a lot of times, people want to fight. They'll push you. Let's say they jump, they surprise you, they knock you down. Okay, they push you down. You're laying on your back. They're trying to beat you up. How you can get to your firearm? Your hands are going to be up here trying to protect yourself from being beat on, and then you're laying on your gun. You're not going to get your fire out quick enough or effectively enough to put it into use. Okay, there's a couple other ways depending on how you carry or what kind of covered garment you wear, if you're wearing a t-shirt or whatever, and someone sees that gun. If someone wants to take that gun from you and you're in Walmart, you're in Winco, you're just in town, how are you going to see that? How are you going to defend that? That's probably one of the hardest places to defend if someone wants to try to snatch your gun from you. Another thing is these guns, granted a lot of them, there's a lot of polymer in these guns. They're still hard. If you've ever slipped and fallen on one, that thing's right over your spine. Okay. There's some people I knew in Kansas that I know that actually have back problems because that exact thing happened and they landed on that gun and it was right over their spine. They got serious back issues because of it.
Now you like appendix carry because you think about how the human arm works and that ball joint in the shoulder and in conjunction. Even if you're pulling off your hip, you're not really in a normal position because
Right.
your elbow is way back and your shoulder is a little out of position. Then you got to lift up. And
Yeah.
but with an appendix carry, it's a much more natural grab when you draw.
Yeah, as long as you're built the right way, it is a much more natural draw. It's easier, it's quicker to get to, and you're able to defend that position a lot better than if it's on your side, if that makes any sense. So I actually carry both ways. I mean, I don't care if people know. I carry appendix carry, and then I also have a crossbreed super tuck holster in the waistband that I do carry at 3 o'clock or at 4 o'clock. Now that I've lost a little weight, I gotta ride it a little further back because there's this hip bone right there that really bothers it, but I'll carry that way at, at, let's say, at church, places like that. But I typically will appendix carry now. I really like it. It's not for everybody. Depends on the size that you are. Depends on your body type, body shape. I appendix carry a full size gun, which a lot of people shake their head at. And a lot of people will go with a smaller gun, and I would imagine a smaller gun's going to be a bit more comfortable. I'm just not a little gun guy, so.
We have another caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Todd Eccles at 9:50.
Boy, I sure enjoy your guys' show. I got my cell phone programmed to make sure I don't forget you.
Good.
I use the Serpa locking holster. Now, if the bad guys know the Serpa, I guess if they know where the button is on the holster, they can press that. But they'd have to be pretty agile and pretty accurate to slide that finger in the right direction to get that gun out of that holster. Do you like the Serpa locking holsters, or?
I have one of those. I don't carry with that necessarily. If I'm going maybe hunting or I'm at the range or something, I'll stick it in there. If I'm riding my four wheeler, just because I know it, my guns have never fallen out of any of my holsters, but I know that one's going to lock in place. I do. You may get on the internet. You may check around YouTube. Those aren't bad holsters, but man, I've seen a little bit of moisture get in there in the wintertime. I've seen those buttons freeze up and then you can't draw your gun. I've seen some grit and stuff get in there to where you can't get that button depressed and you can't get your firearm out. I mean, that's doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. It's something to consider, though.
I see. I never thought about that. I run a taxidermy business over here in the Minicaja area, and I use a lot of borax. I blow a lot of borax around when I'm doing birds, and I've gotten my holster saturated with dust before. It doesn't seem like it's bothered it before when I kind of imprint and take it out each day and take it in, and especially at night when I go to bed. So you imprint that finger going across that button, across that button, across that button, across that button, so you do it automatically.
Muscle memory, yeah.
Yeah, muscle memory. So anyway, I haven't had a problem with dust, but I haven't thought of the moisture problem. I've never had a problem when I've had to draw it out. But
I mean, if it works for you, it works for you. And I'm not saying that's a bad way to carry. Just something to think about. I mean, I usually have a drawer full of holsters, so I have different options depending on what mood I am or I'm in that day or where I'm going to go. I will add this though. You said you set your phone so you don't miss the show.
Yeah.
I tell you what, if you're into podcasts, you can get whatever podcast app you use. If you don't have one, you can find one. I do a podcast about once a week, and I'd sure love to have you listening to that if you don't already.
Hey, well, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. One quick question, I'll let you go.
Sure.
Have you ever had one of your guns fall out of your holsters when you've been over to town or whatever?
I have not.
Okay.
Have you?
I have not, because I've always used the Serpa.
Yeah, and it's all about using a proper holster, and I always wear a good gun belt. And when I say gun belt, I'm typically not the ones maybe you go and buy at JCPenney, but an actual belt made to carry a gun, a nice stiff belt, one that's going to be rigid and help hold the gun up. But I always pull it kind of tight, and it actually helps keep everything in place. But most of the holsters I use are like a Kydex, and so the gun will actually go in the Kydex and it'll pop into place. But when you go to draw it and you give it a nice little smooth jerk, it'll draw right out of that holster. So that's kind of what locks it in as well as the belt.
Yeah, that's a good idea to use an actual gun belt rather than my rigid belt, which I do. But when I hear that click, when I put that weapon in the holster and I hear that click, I know it's not going to go anywhere. And I don't know if this is a bad idea or not, but I've wrestled with kids and I've been turned upside down working on a car or whatever, and it's never come out on me.
It's not a bad idea. If you're going to carry that gun, it's a lifestyle. It needs to become a part of you. And if you can wrestle with kids and do whatever it is you do, and that gun's not not going to come out, and you're happy and you're secure in that fact, and that holster is what allows you to carry that firearm every day. I say I'd rather see you use that holster and carry your gun every day than not. So I say keep right on going.
I want to thank him for the telephone call as well. It's 9:54. Todd Eccles with us. Bill Colley, too, on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. But just a quick note, coming up next Wednesday between 8:30 and 9 o'clock on the show, Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine. We do it every Wednesday, and it's an opportunity for you to chime in and get a medical question or two answered if you've got them for the doctor or one of his associates. I do want to remind you, Tripp Family Medicine is still looking for new patients. They can often see patients, often being the operative word, on the very same day if you call early in the morning and you've got a medical issue that is getting a little out of hand. And we wanted to remind you as well, the office is located on Fillmore Street across from the main post office in Twin Falls, and life's too short not to feel good. About 2 minutes to go. We're going to take one last quick call,
Okay.
and then Todd's going to try to squeeze in a little bit more contact information again. Caller, you're up next, and you're on KLIX.
Good morning, guys. Hope you're having a great day. You had mentioned that you thought the baby 40 was a little too hot for some people to handle. I have the perfect cure for that. Once they're, don't give it to a noob, but there's someone that's acclimated to shooting, give them a 10 millimeter. They'll either A, decide they don't like big guns, B, decide 40 isn't that hot anyway, or C, like me, fall in love with 10 millimeter, and that's their go-to caliber. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Want to thank you for the call.
If you can shoot it and it works for you, then go. 10 millimeter. A lot of people shoot 10s, and that's fantastic. It works. It's a good caliber, and 40 is a good caliber too. I've just seen a lot of people that can't shoot it that should be shooting something else, and they would be a lot more accurate, a lot more proficient with it. But if you can shoot a big caliber and you're fine with it and you're good at shooting it, go for it. Just go for it.
We've got to mention, because Todd brought up the podcast, there's a number of ways people can see those.
Yeah. You can. I tried it. I'm a little behind, but usually you can go to my my website, which is patriotdefense13.com, and I'll post them up there. I've got a YouTube channel under Patriot Defense Podcast. They also will show up on iTunes. Just look them up under iTunes under Patriot Defense Podcast, and then again, it's kind of repetitive, but I post them to my Facebook page. I'm under Patriot Defense whenever I release them. So get on there, subscribe to them, so they automatically come to whatever app you use. That would be fantastic. You can call me. You can text me if you're interested in a class or have any questions at area code 620-794-6223. If you find me on Facebook, go ahead and like the page, and you'll stay updated and abreast of everything that I got going on. And I will say this, get a hold of me, even if you don't want to take a class. We talked about holsters today. We talked about different ways to carry. I really like to help people, and I will answer. You text me a question. You can shoot me a message on Facebook. I get them all the time. It's not going to cost you anything. Just call, and I love to help. I like to ask questions. I like to answer questions. I like to meet new people. And maybe you got some knowledge that I need. So it goes both ways. So get a hold of me. I look forward to hearing from you.
I was going to say, nobody ever falls asleep in your classes. We should point that out.
No one has.
And you can chew gum, I suppose, too.
And you can text. I allow that.
We still see that in meetings.
Yeah.
Where people are in a meeting and all of a sudden they're looking at their phone and it's going, bloop, bloop, bloop.
Well, and on breaks, you can go out and meet Lenny and his new girlfriend, Penny, my ducks.
The ducks, and they're big.
Yes, they are.
Big ducks. 9:58. Want to thank Todd. We'll see him again shortly. And it's 37 right now. Everyone have a great weekend. Bill Colley saying, God willing, the creek don't rise. I'll be back here on Monday morning between 8 and 10 o'clock. Rush Limbaugh's program is up next following news at 10 o'clock. Glenn Beck at 4, and in between this guy, Sean Hannity. You may have heard of him. He's on from 1 until 4. Dave Ramsey tonight from 7 until 10 o'clock.